Okay, today we're going to talk about statistics, and a lot of this is going to be a review for you, but we need to go through it anyways. So the first thing we're going to do is we have a set of numbers up here, and we're going to find several things. We're going to find the mean, the median, and the mode. Now, all three of these are different ways of saying it's an average. So we need to make sure we're careful when we use the word average and we know which we're talking about. In everyday life, most people, when they say average, they're talking about the mean. But in mathematics, mean, median, and mode are all different forms of average. Okay? So mean is the one that you're normally familiar with. And this is where you add everything up and divide by the total. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So our total is going to be 7. And we're going to just add them all up. So we're going to go with 3 plus 6 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 2 plus 4. And we're going to divide all that by 7 because there are 7 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And we always do PEMDAS, and it says we have to do the top first. We add up all these numbers because this acts like parentheses, and parentheses come first. So we got, this is 10, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23, 27. Double check that. 10, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23. Yep, so 27 divided by 7. And that's going to be just a little bit less than 4. So this was 28, it'd be 4. So this is going to be 3 and 6/7. You can leave it as a mixed number. You can make it decimal, however you want to do it. But that's what our mean is. It's 3 and almost 4. Median, on the other hand, is going to be the middle number. Okay, and when we find the middle number, first thing is we have to put it in order. Okay, you can't go find a middle number until this thing is in order. So the first thing we have to do is reorder it. So we're going to put in order from smallest to greatest. So we got 2, and we got 2 3s, and then a pair of 4s, and then a 5 and a 6. And it's always a good idea to go back and check and make sure you have all your numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We still have 7 numbers, so we should have the same set of numbers. Now that we have it in order, we need to find the middle. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. One way is to just cross off left and right until you find the middle. The other way is to count. In this case, we have 7, and if you divide that by 2 and round up, you'll find the middle. And if it's an even number, you'll have an exact number, in which case it'll be between that number and the next number. So since we're doing 7, we're going to do 7 divided by 2, which is 3.5. Round up to 4, so we need to find the fourth number. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's right there. And as you look, if we had crossed out, we'd cross out the 2 and the 6, the 3 and the 5, and the 3 and the 4, and we'd be left with this middle number 4. So it doesn't matter to me which way you do it, but you need to find the middle number. Just to illustrate what would happen if you have an odd number, let's say we have these numbers. Okay, in this case we do 6 divided by 3 is, 6 divided by 2 is 3. And because 3 is odd, it'll be between 3 and the fourth number. So you go find the third and the fourth number, and it's going to be right there. That would be where your median is. Okay? So when the median ends up being between two numbers, like in this case, you're going to add them up and divide by 2, in which case you're going to end up with 3.5. So when you have an even number of numbers, you'll end up having to find the mean of the middle two numbers. When you have an odd number, like the case I have up here, it's just that middle number, whatever it is. Okay? So in this case, our mode was 4. The median was 4. Now let's look at the mode. So mode is simply going to be the most. It's the most common number. And in this case, we have 2. We have a pair of 3s and we have a pair of 4s. So we have 2 modes, 3 and 4. So it's always going to be the most. If there's more than one that has the same number of numbers, then you can have more than one mode. If none have more than the other one, so let's say like this case where everyone is represented once, we're going to call this no mode. Okay, so if you're tempted to say everything's a mode, the answer is actually no mode. So there you have it. You have mean, median, and mode. So let's look at some other vocab words that we need to learn. The next one is going to be IQR. And before you find the IQR, Actually, let's go with a couple of easier ones first. We're going to do a 5-number summary. And in a 5-number summary, we're going to use this a little bit later when we get to graphing. But the first number is going to be your minimum. Okay, the minimum is simply the lowest number. Okay, and remember, you can't see it here. They have to be in order. And our lowest number right here is 2. So our minimum is 2. The next number that's important is the maximum. And it's just like it sounds. It's going to be the largest number, which in this case is 6. Okay, the third number is the median. And the median, you already know, is going to be 4 because we've already done it. But it's, if you've forgotten, it's going to be you put the numbers in order and you go find the middle number. Okay, so we've got the minimum, the maximum, the median. And then the last two numbers we need is called Q1 and Q3. And these are quartiles. And the word quartile has this word quart in it that means fourth. So we're going to take our data and we're going to separate in fourths. Well, we already have it in halves. So when you find the Q1 and Q3, we're going to ignore the median. So this no longer exists. Okay? In this case, the line doesn't exist. So we have 3 numbers to the left and 3 numbers to the right. Here we also have 3 numbers to the left to 3 numbers to the right. So we're going to find the middle number. In this case, it's 3. And on the other side, we're going to find the middle number. In this case, it is 5. And like we down here, we would have had 2 and 5 if we had done it over here. And just like in this case, originally, if you have the middle number is between 2 numbers, because it's even again, you're going to add them up and divide by 2, finding the mean of those 2 numbers. So if it happens to be in between 2 numbers, anytime that happens, just add them up, divide by 2, and that's going to be your median. Okay, so here we have the median in the lower half is going to be 3, the median in the upper half is going to be 5, and we've now separated our data into fourths. So Q1 is right here, Q3 is right here, and this is known as the median, but every once in a while, sometimes it's called Q2. Okay, so Q1 and Q3 is what we're after, so we need 3 and 5, and this is what's called a 5-number summary. So keep this in mind because we're going to use it later. But as I was getting to, we're going to talk about the IQR. Actually, let's do even one more thing first before I get to IQR. Let's talk about the range. Okay? Range is a very simple thing to calculate. It is just maximum minus minimum. It's how wide your data is. So we're going to take the largest number, 6, and we're going to subtract the smallest number, 2, and that is going to be your range. In this case, 6 minus 2 is 4. Okay? IQR stands for inner quartile range. Inner quartile range. So it's going to be another range just like this range was, but instead of being the range of the whole thing, it's going to be the range of the quartile. So instead of doing max minus min, we're going to do Q3 minus Q1. So yeah, IQR is simply Q3 take away Q1. And in this case, Q3 was 5, Q1 was 3, so we're going to be doing 5 minus 3, which is 2. So you found the IQR, inner quartile range, is going to be 2, because it came from 5 minus 3. So let's take a quick look and recap what we did. First, we found the mean by adding up all our numbers and dividing by the total. Then we found the median, which is the middle number after we put things in order. We found the mode, which is the most common, and there can be more than one. We have looked at the 5-number summary, including the min, the max, the median, the Q1 and Q3. We found the range by doing max minus min, and we found the IQR by doing Q3 minus Q1. Now there's a couple other things that we're going to talk about. The first one is an outlier. An outlier is simply a number that doesn't fit in with the rest of the data. So for looking at this, all this data kind of looks pretty close together. But let's say that the next number in this series is 15. So 15 clearly is an outlier because it doesn't fit in with the rest of the data. It's far, far away from the rest of the data. And that's what an outlier means. It's something that is far and away from the rest of the data that you already have. Now, as we go through it, there are some calculations. You're going to get to a section in your textbook that talks about an upper fence and a lower fence. I'm not too worried about you using these. If you ever get into a situation where you want to know if something is really an outlier or really not an outlier, that's the calculation you're going to use, upper fence and lower fence. At that point, you would look up the formula for it. But what I want you to have a bigger picture on is just what outlier means. So if you see this word outlier, you're just looking for something that is far from the rest of the data. And if you understand that, that's really what I want you to get out of this. Far from the rest of your data. Okay? So the numbers say 1, 2, 5, 6, 10. I would say there's no outliers because all these are pretty close together. If you had something like this, 1, 2, 5, 8, 100, 100 is clearly an outlier because it's nowhere near the rest of your data. And I know that's pretty subjective, and that's okay. But like I said, if you ever really need to know if something's an outlier or not, look up the formula for upper fence and lower fence. But for the rest of the case, I'm perfectly okay with you just eyeballing it and saying, you know what, it's close, it's not. I'd much rather have you tell me that your reason for an outlier and know what this means than to be absolutely 100% correct all the time. The other thing that we're going to talk about is standard deviation. That is not how you spell that. Let's try that one again. STA, standard. There we go. Deviation. Okay? And we're going to compare that with IQR. Okay? Both of these are different ways to measure how close your data is clumped together. So in a standard deviation, we have what's called a bell curve, and it looks something like this. Traditionally, grades are calculated this way. This should be all the way down back to where the original one was. Where the C would be in the center, and then you have a few more B's or D's, and then you have just a few A's and just a few F's. The closer this is together, something like that, this has a low standard of deviation. And if it's really spread out, like this one, this is a high standard of deviation. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to calculate this with a calculator, and in another video I'll show you how to do this. But if it's centered around the median, and that's really important, the center of this is supposed to be your Okay, if it's centered around the median, then you can use this and use this one. And it will tell you how close to being centered it is. Okay, so we got the lower your number, the closer it is, and the higher the number, the more spread out it is. Okay, so standard deviation we're going to use when something is symmetric. Okay, and IQR we're going to use when it's called asymmetric. Now symmetric, you should know, it looks like this. It means the left side and the right side match each other. Okay, asymmetric would be something like this, where it's off to one side or off to the other side. Okay, in your book it talks about skewed right and skewed left. Don't worry about which way it's skewed. Just know that it's not centered. Anytime something is skewed, it is considered asymmetric. Okay, meaning not symmetric. That's what the little a out front means. It's not symmetric. Okay. So as you go through the graphing section, and you're going to need to watch that video, pay attention to whether something is symmetric or asymmetric, because it will help you decide if you should be using standard deviation or IQR to figure out the central tendency. All right, so that's it for analyzing data. I will make another video that shows you how to use your calculator to find mean and median as well as standard deviation. And you should also watch the graphing videos, and then there'll be some videos on tables later on.